In a packed Manhattan courtroom, a billionaire CEO, known for his towering wealth and even larger ego, refused to stand when a black female judge entered, sneering that he didn't bow to anyone. What unfolded next from Judge Aisha Williams, a woman who rose from Harlem's toughest streets to the federal bench, left the entire courtroom speechless, turning a moment of arrogance into a lesson that echoed far beyond the walls of justice. Marcus Everett, a billionaire tech mogul whose name adorned skyscrapers and Forbes lists, walked into the federal courtroom in Manhattan on a crisp October morning in 2024. At 48, he was a founder of Everett Innovations, a company that revolutionized cloud computing and made him one of the richest men in America. Dressed in a bespoke Tom Ford suit, he carried an air of invincibility. His legal troubles, a high-profile fraud case involving $200 million in misreported earnings, merely a nuisance to his empire. As he took his seat at the defense table, his team of high-powered attorneys whispered strategy, their briefcases stuffed with motions to dismiss. The bailiff's voice rang out, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Aisha Williams." The courtroom complied. Lawyers, spectators, even the court stenographer stood in respect. Everyone except Marcus Everett. He remained seated, legs crossed, scrolling through his phone with a faint smirk. A murmur rippled through the room. His lead attorney, Richard Hale, leaned over, urging him to stand, but Marcus waved him off. "I don't stand for anyone," he muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This is my show." Judge Aisha Williams, a 45-year-old black woman with a reputation for fairness and a steel spine, entered from her chambers. Her judicial robe flowed as she took her seat at the bench, her eyes scanning the room with the precision of someone who'd spent years navigating bias and adversity. Born in Harlem to a single mother who worked 2 jobs, Aisha had clawed her way through Columbia Law School, graduating top of her class, and served as a public defender before her appointment to the federal bench. Her presence commanded respect, but Marcus's defiance was unmistakable. The bailiff repeated, "All rise," with a sharper tone, glaring at Marcus. Still, he didn't budge. Spectators exchanged glances, and a journalist in the back scribbled furiously, sensing a story. Aisha's gaze settled on Marcus, her expression unreadable but piercing. She tapped her gavel once, signaling to start proceedings, but instead of diving into the case docket, she addressed the room directly. "Respect for this court is not optional," she said, her voice clear and measured. "It is the foundation of justice. Mr. Everett, you will stand when I enter, as is custom, or explain why you believe you're above it." Marcus looked up from his phone, his smirk widening. "With all due respect, Your Honor," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "I stand for no one. I built a billion-dollar company from nothing. I don't bow to protocol or pageantry." Gasps echoed from the gallery. Richard Hale's face paled as he whispered urgently to Marcus, who ignored him, leaning back in his chair. Aisha's eyes narrowed slightly, but her composure held like tempered steel. She'd faced defiance before, prosecutors who underestimated her, defendants who tested her authority, but this was different. Marcus's refusal wasn't just a breach of decorum. It was a public challenge, tinged with the racial and gendered undertone she'd navigated her entire career. She leaned forward, her voice steady but carrying an edge. "Mr. Everett, this court represents the rule of law, not your boardroom. You will stand, or you will face consequences. This is your first warning." Marcus shrugged, unfazed. "Consequences? I've got the best lawyers money can buy. Let's move on with the case." His attorneys cringed, and the courtroom buzzed with tension. A young law clerk, watching from the side, whispered to a colleague, "He's digging his own grave." The journalist, now live tweeting, posted, "Billionaire Marcus Everett refuses to stand for Judge Aisha Williams. Courtroom drama unfolding. #Justice on trial." Aisha paused, her fingers resting lightly on the bench. She'd seen men like Marcus before, wealthy, entitled, believing their money insulated them from accountability. But she also knew the way her robe, earned through years of defending clients society had written off, from juvenile delinquents to wrongfully accused immigrants. She'd studied the Constitution in a Harlem library with flickering lights, mentored by a mother who quoted Frederick Douglass. "Power concedes nothing without a demand." This was her courtroom, and she would not let arrogance undermine it. "Mr. Everett," Aisha said, her voice now carrying the weight of the gavel, "your wealth does not exempt you from respect, nor does it rewrite the rules of this court. You have one final chance to stand, or I will hold you in contempt." The room fell silent, every eye on Marcus. He met her gaze, his expression defiant, and remained seated. "Do what you must, Your Honor," he said, folding his arms. "I'm not here to play games." Aisha nodded, almost imperceptibly, and turned to the bailiff. "Escort Mr. Everett to a holding cell. He is in contempt of court. We will reconvene in 1 hour." The bailiff moved swiftly, and Marcus, caught off guard, stood only as the bailiff approached, his face reddening. "This is outrageous," he shouted as he was let out, his attorney scrambling to object. Richard Hale pleaded, "Your Honor, my client meant no disrespect. He's under stress from the case." Aisha raised a hand. "Mr. Hale, your client's actions speak louder than your words. Court is recessed." The courtroom erupted in whispers as Marcus was escorted out, his $5,000 loafers clicking on the marble floor. Spectators turned to each other, some shocked, others nodding in approval. The journalist's Twitter thread exploded, with thousands of retweets. "Judge Aisha Williams just sent billionaire Marcus Everett to a holding cell for refusing to stand. Power move. Hashtag courtroom justice." Online, reactions poured in from "she's a queen" to "Everett's ego just met its match." In the holding cell, Marcus paced, his phone confiscated, his suit jacket wrinkled. He muttered about lawsuits and media smear campaigns. But a small part of him, a part he'd suppressed through years of corporate conquests, felt a flicker of doubt. He'd grown up in a working-class Chicago suburb, his father a mechanic who taught him to hustle. But wealth had changed him, inflating his sense of invincibility. He'd forgotten the humility his father preached, the same humility that had carried Aisha to the bench. Meanwhile, Aisha retreated to her chambers, where she reviewed the case file. The fraud allegations against Everett Innovations were serious. Investors had lost millions, and whistleblowers claimed Marcus had personally overseen the manipulation of financial reports. But today's incident wasn't about the case. It was about respect, not just for her, but for the institution she represented. She recalled her first day as a judge, when a senior colleague warned her, "You'll face those who think a black woman shouldn't be here. Show them why you are." She'd done so, case by case, earning a reputation for rulings that balanced compassion with unflinching principle. An hour later, the courtroom reconvened. Marcus, now slightly disheveled, was brought back in. Aisha addressed him directly. "Mr. Everett, contempt of court is not a trivial matter. It undermines the justice system that protects your rights as much as anyone else's. I'm giving you an opportunity to correct your behavior. Will you stand when I enter, as a sign of respect for this court?" Marcus hesitated, his pride warring with pragmatism. The holding cell had been a jolt. Concrete walls, no Wi-Fi, the faint smell of disinfectant. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of consequence. He glanced at his attorneys, who nodded urgently, then back at Aisha. "Fine," he said, his voice low. "I'll stand." Aisha nodded. "Very well. Let's proceed with the case." But Aisha wasn't done. As the hearing began, she made an unusual move. "Before we address the motions," she said, "I want to remind everyone here the principle at stake. This court is not a stage for personal vendettas or displays of power. It exists to uphold justice.